Hello, and welcome to the Fear Channel, a channel with regular broadcasts telling the most chilling of urban legends, ghost stories, and forays into the darkest corners of the human mind. Those faint of heart or prone to night terror should proceed at their own risk. Tonight's story is the abduction case of John Salter Jr. On the night of March 20th, 1988, John Salter Jr. and his son, John III, were driving in a pickup truck on the central Wisconsin highway Route 14. It was twilight, around 6:25 p.m., according to Salter. They were driving up a stretch of 4-lane highway. The next thing they knew, without any memory of the time elapsed, they look at their car clock and it read 7:45, and the 80-mile stretch of highway they were supposed to have traversed was already behind them. Both Johns racked their brains trying to figure out what happened, but neither of them could explain the missing time or distance. The next day, the two were driving again and encountered a bright light traveling towards them. When the craft came within view, it appeared to be a saucer of an extraordinary silver color and was big enough to cover nearly 2/3 of the double highway. Then, with incredible speed, the craft took off and continued into the distance until it disappeared from view completely. Both John Salter Jr. and his son had the distinct impression that this visitation was of a friendly nature, and both had the sense that this strange encounter had something to do with the missing time they experienced the night before. Looking back on his experience, Salter realized that the route he took on the first night was an illogical one to take. He could have made his journey much quicker using a different route. He even remembered thinking this while planning the trip, but when he went to consider an alternative route, a song of great sentimental value from his youth suddenly popped into his head, and he forgot all about the incident. The Salters would not remember the experience of their abduction until several months later, when it would begin to slowly come back to them in the form of dreams and waking flashbacks. The memories are best described in Salter's own words. As the 4-lane ended and total amnesia, but not total unconsciousness, enveloped us, we were gently but firmly forced off the highway onto a very narrow and extremely rough road. In June 1989, we determined, on the basis of recall and contemporary observation, that this is the Pierce Spring Road, about a mile or so in length. This starts a very short distance after the end of the 4-lane. As one goes down Highway 14, it is a sharp right turn off the right lane. We parked the pickup near the upper far end of this winding timbered road. Then we were standing, John III and I, not far from the passenger side of the pickup, which is parked on the level stretch of Pierce Spring Road under some trees. It is almost dark. Completely at ease, I can see 2 or 3 small humanoid figures climbing up the back of the bumper, looking at our gear in the back of the truck. Up closer, they are 4 to 4.5 feet tall, thin bodies, thin limbs, but comparatively large heads and conspicuously large, quasi-slanted eyes. There are several of these small people, perhaps 6 or 7, and a taller humanoid figure, almost as tall as I, 6 feet, and not as proportionately thin as the others. His features are more, as we would use the term, human, and he may well have been of mixed blood. Whatever clothing type they're wearing, it's tight-fitting. To us, at this point in recall, nondescript. Our communication with them is more than thought impressionistic. It's telepathically specific. John III sat down. 3 of the small humanoids gathered around us, viewing him with as much fascination as he does them. Everyone is very pleased. The tall humanoid is attached to us in a special fashion, and is obviously our key liaison. Now we were walking through the darkening woods, up a ravine and over a small ridge, to the UFO, which is in a rather secluded clearing some distance from the pickup. I stumbled and fell backwards, but was immediately cushioned by what I assumed to be a telekinetic force. Very, very gently, several of the humanoids reached for me and pulled me to my feet. Throughout this entire, still continuing recall process of mine is the clear, persistent, definite sense of a brightly lit room, a kind of white light, and a deep blue glowing panel. An implant was placed very carefully up into my right nostril and well beyond. There is a strong sense that the last time this happened to me was a long time ago, when I was John III's age, in 1957. There was an injection made into my neck, at the thyroid area, and then an injection into my upper central chest, at the thymus gland. John III's face is scanned very thoroughly with a flashlight-type instrument, whose head is so soft that it melds into the contours of his face. Special attention is given to his chin and jaw area. Then we were out in the open again. The feeling is downright powerful that the meeting has gone very well indeed from everyone's standpoint. Our tall humanoid friend walks back with me, through the woods to the pickup. He is carrying some sort of light, obviously for our benefit. John III is slightly ahead of us. I believe the smaller humanoids have remained with the UFO. John III goes into the passenger side of the pickup, closing the door. I feel an extremely strong, poignant sense of farewell towards the tall figure, sensing equally strong reciprocity. His emotional and intellectual reactions are like ours: sharp intelligence, good-natured, smiled a great deal, eager, very interested in things, and sad, very sad at parting. Basically, I think all of this holds true for the smaller people too. The tall figure and I tell each other, and John III is included, that we will see each other once again in another time and another place. All of John Salter's words would seem highly incredulous, but the people who knew John well tended to believe him. At the time, he was a university professor and a well-respected member of the community. John has since gone through several physiological changes as a result of his encounter. Again, this is best represented in his own words. The still continuing results of my implant and injections, although initially their presence was not known to me in the fully conscious sense, began to emerge in some cases as early as May 1988. John III has had none of these. By June and July, other manifestations were present. My head hair, fingernails, and toenails were growing 2 to 3 times their normal rate, and continue to do so. My eyebrows have become very thick, and fine body hair has developed all over my previous, almost hairless, arms, legs, stomach, and chest. Cuts and scratches clot immediately, and heal very, very rapidly. A denture placed in 1984 resulted in almost daily blood, until shortly after the encounter, 4 years later, when the situation healed and remained so. Some little age spots have shrunk or disappeared, and the few wrinkles in my face have faded away for the most part. My skin tone is generally much clearer. Blood is much closer to the surface all over my body, indicating even better circulation than before. For the first time in my life, my beard is very heavy, very thick, and quite dark. My immunity is heightened. Flu bugs may touch me, but don't dig deeply in, and the few colds I have now are generally insignificant and short-lived. My energy level is up, and my sleep needs, never really substantial, are down. Although not in any sense a craving, my protein needs are very heavy, and in May 1989, I began taking 8 amino acid supplements per day, which has returned to normal my burgeoning meat consumption. An auto-wreck in Mississippi in 1963 left some residual disfigurement on the right side of my face, but by spring 1989, this had faded completely into normalcy. I also smoked for 40 years, and very heavily for the past 35, 4 packs of cigarettes a day, often unfiltered. And then, for the last 21 years, a pound of pipe tobacco a week. In the spring of 1989, my pipe smoking slacked off to some extent, and in mid-May, I realized I had gone almost 24 hours without smoking, and I then stopped completely and permanently, doing so without one single physical or psychological twinge. My psychic sensitivities are sharpened, and there are increased telekinetic episodes, especially around electrical equipment. I have a mild aversion to sunlight, and increased sensitivity to lights in general, now preferring cloudy weather and darkish offices. My left foot and leg coordinate and walk a little differently, initially running down my left boot heels. There are no walking problems now since I've learned to let it happen smoothly and naturally. Occasionally, a red welt appears on the lower right side of my neck in the thyroid area, and a brown, circular spot about a half-inch in diameter and with a round pointed mark in its precise center surfaces upon my upper chest over my thymus gland region. In the earlier part of 1957, although deeply involved in good causes, I was having some difficulty in determining just what I wanted to do primarily with my life, portions of which had already been quite interesting. Then, at some point in the summer after the encounter, my focus sharpened into its permanently fixed commitment to social justice pursuits. My health has become notably great. It should also be noted that Salter's son, John III, grew 1.5 feet taller in the 3 years after the incident between the ages of 23 and 25. This was in spite of the fact that he had previously stopped growing at the age of 19, 4 years prior to the encounter.